Hello everyone, this is Connor, and these are my tips for getting a big score on a small island. So this is just the starting island. It is very indicative of the style of island that the generator will give you for your first island. Um, in Islanders, you have three primary strategic decisions that you make. You choose which buildings to unlock, you choose where to place them, and you choose the order to place them. Now eventually you lose the ability to choose which buildings you unlock, but it still is a very significant decision. So in this case, I'm actually going to delay taking farming for as long as I can. Although my lumber is not going to be worth very much, there just aren't very many trees on this island, I don't have very much green space either, and green space is a very finite resource. So if I take farming earlier, through the course of the game I will end up with several more fields, and fields must be placed on green. So I'm going to start with lumber, and like I said, delay that field as much as possible. The statue itself forms a natural focal point for your island, and in particular you want to make sure that your temple is close to it, if possible. Place one of these far over here, using as little of this prime large space as possible. And then the second I actually can hopefully position a little more out of the way. Now, in terms of build sequencing, you want to build resource gatherers before you build the resource hub. Those are not in-game supported terms, just how I think of it. Because the sawmill, as you can see, gets 7 points for every lumberjacks, and lumberjacks get only 5 for the sawmill, I believe. Now I'm going to take brewing next, because hop fields can go on sand, so that's a way to use this sand profitably. And again, I'm trying to delay these fields. They're going to fill this entire green area very quickly. So let's go ahead and get the first one situated as far in as we can. We want to take up the smallest amount of space as possible. I don't think that I could fit 2 horizontally here. Buildings are very slightly larger than they actually physically appear, so you have to kind of keep that in mind with placements. But I do think I can do that. Yeah, that seems like the most efficient use of space. And then get this one down. I'm going to slant it a little bit out here. Nothing would fit in this gap area here if I placed it far in, so I may as well occupy that space and try and fit something here. Now, just like we placed our lumberjacks before placing our sawmill, we're going to place the brewery after placing hop fields. And I'm actually going to go ahead and place a sawmill. I could place the brewery instead, but the sawmill back here is probably never going to get any better. I think all of my lumberjacks in the future will need to be over here to pick up the trees without hitting those. So I think this is unlikely to rise in value. And here we have our big unlock. The city is one of the first things you'll get. Typically it comes in third. And once you have the city, you will get mansions and houses from almost every subsequent choice. After the first 2 selections, or I think even maybe after the first 1, you get 6 buildings every time. So once you unlock things like the house and the mansion that have a high chance of being granted to you, you will roll them often. You'll just kind of keep having them come in. So I'm going to go ahead and build this because it's not getting any better. And then, ideally, I would like to have a double city center. Now, the double city center is something that I dearly love. It's when you place 2 city centers in adjacency, sharing as much of their radius as possible. The idea being that you can then place, like mansions that are getting plus 16 for both of the city centers, houses that are getting plus 12. Those kind of bonuses can add up quickly. But that does mean that I want to save these buildings until they are more profitable later. So for the time being, I'm going to try and position this 1 building, or maybe a building and a half, in from this wall here. So somewhere like there. That also didn't take out any trees, which means that if I need to place 1 more lumberjack, I can maybe dip in from this direction and get 5 or 6 points. Now that's kind of a difficult decision about what do I place. I might get more hops fields in the future, and as you can see, each one is worth 5 points. If I get more sawmills, more lumberjacks, those will each be worth 7. A new city center to my houses is worth 6, and to my mansions is worth 8. So you see all of these buildings I would prefer to place later, but obviously you have to place something. So I think I'm going to start with a house, and I can place this out here pretty far away from the city center, but also dipping into the benefit of the statue. So let's go ahead and I think that's good. You always want to unlock new buildings whenever you can, rather than building out your full inventory, because it gives you more information and costs you nothing. So having more information allows you to make more informed decisions. Now, shamans are kind of funny. They really only get points for flowers. I mean, the other things are statue and temple, which, you know, not major considerations. You'll only have a few on your whole island. So sometimes you can place shamans to get a decent number of points from flowers, but sometimes, and in fact in this case, you can get way more points by positioning them to benefit your houses. So in this case, I can get like a 10-point shaman fairly easily, dipping into those, and then my mansions will get 6 points from that shaman, my houses will get 5. So you see, that's why I didn't want to place these two, because if I'd placed this shaman first, then these would have each given me, what is it, 5 more points each? Yeah. So that's 10 points that I have unfortunately missed out on. I think I'll place it here, which is hopefully one building in from the edge there. That's actually, it looks a little close. I don't think a square building will, I guess it might. We'll see. We shall see. But now, like, mansions in this area are a plus 15. I can get houses that are plus 18. You see the point values are rising now that I have this little concentration. So even though over here was worth more points in the moment, this is absolutely a better long-term choice. So there's also a little bit of SimCity consideration. This mostly applies to mansions since their radius is so small. But for example, this mansion is very tempting because it, you know, is a plus 15, it fits in neatly, but it's actually better to occupy less of the bubble of these two buildings. So what I mean by that is if I can place it over here, then that would still leave that whole area below the mansion, which would still be within range of both of these. I could put one here and one here, as opposed to placing one here, which fills a huge amount of the space next to these buildings. Now, of course, I could go ahead to the next island. If you're playing for fun, feel free to move on whenever you want to. If you're trying to get a high score, you should stay as long as you can. I haven't been discussing my unlock decisions a lot. I'll try and slow down and do a better job of that, but basically, buildings that I want to get multiples of, I'm unlocking earlier. So like fissures are always going to be worth a decent amount of points. They're not very particular, and I could place one out here, I could place one out here, I could place one out here, and they also are on the unlock chain heading towards huts, and huts are also great. They're high value and they're very small. So I unlocked fissures early just because I want to see a lot of them, and if you get them in the queue earlier, you're going to see more of them. That's interesting. But I'm going to build all of my houses kind of in this direction, so then maybe I can get a circus over here. Ideally, I'll get another city center and place it maybe over here, or I might even begin a new city down here. The first island is kind of defined by how small the build area is, but I do want to group up my mansions a bit further away from that. Given that there's no gold mine here, I won't be getting a gold mine, but I think I like this mansion. 15 points is a fair payout. Okay, fountains. So see, I'm still just delaying farming. I'm just putting farming off as long as possible. When it comes to fountains, the mansion is more ideal. They just want to be in the middle of your city, and the mansion is a slightly higher payoff. And you can see I could go ahead and place it and get a decent value, but the fountain has a much greater range than the mansion. So if I place a mansion here, it would not detect that fountain that I place here. So you should try and place the fountain as late as possible. So that's a pretty good house. I think in service of the circus, I'm going to start my houses stretching a little bit further around this way and try and build my mansions in this arc here. I am going to start deforesting more heavily now. I think it's essentially unavoidable. And I could place this mansion, but this mansion occupies way less valuable space and is only 1 point less. And that actually lets me fit maybe even a couple more mansions in this area. So there's the hut right after the fissure. And this is our payoff for not placing brewery yet. Just that. That's the whole reason we did it. Seems kind of underwhelming, I know, but it does add up if you kind of systematically build in that way. It looks... yeah, there we go. Alright, so you might have seen that, like, I couldn't move this in originally. It's sliding right in now. Yeah, so I get caught right there for some reason, but sometimes if you just wiggle a building a bit, it'll fit into an area that it couldn't previously. So that's a little bit more of a payoff. You see now we're up to 28, and obviously I have 2 breweries, and they give each other a -10, so I'm not looking to build the second until I have a plateau of some kind out here, water or traditional. So our fountain is probably going to end up being like here, and that means that we should not occupy that space with our mansions as we keep building. And that might mean that we put down some much lower point value mansions, but the fountain means that each mansion we place is essentially worth 3 extra points. So it doesn't make a 3 worthwhile, because a 6 would not be worthwhile, but if we end up with like a 7 or something, a 7 being a 10 in actuality when you count the bonus points the fountain will grant, etc. Parks. Parks are one of the buildings that you'll end up with just about 1 million of. I don't really plan a ton for parks. I certainly could do a better job of that, and it might pay out really well. But parks, if I'd left, an opening in here, I could get some decent point values out of that. They also like just green stuff in general, so like that's a really interesting park, right? And that is doubly effective if you are going to build a resort oasis, because the resort oasis counts parks for 5 points. The same value, they count it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this 15. You can see this just keeps getting better. The longer we hold the breweries, the more they're going to be worth. 33 points each. And looks like there might be 1 park worth of space that I can build out before I lose contact with that field over there. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and get some park points. I think I'm going to go ahead and place this. Should give me some momentum to unlock additional styles of building and city building. Alright, here's the plateau. About time. A new shaman as well, so if I can find a profitable shaman spot, I can begin double dipping my mansions again. I think that's a pretty conservative placement. So now I can get this 11-point mansion, instantly punished for building the fountain, of course. So let's get 11 points there. Yeah, not quite a square here. Place it a little bit too close. It happens. One of the tiny mansions, like that shape, I think that's the small one. Yeah, like this shape will fit in there, maybe diagonally. Now that I have a plateau, we can start talking about expansion. So with plateaus and water plateaus, and also to some degree wall plateaus, you will expand away from your mainland, and you can think in terms of where you're going to expand. So I think that this is short enough, I might not be able to place a wall plateau on it, or if I can, it's going to be kind of a janky one. Now I'd love to place my temple on one there, so I'm not going to plan a temple on a plateau. Plateaus are worth 25 to a temple, which is, a nice payout. But I think that I would rather try and save this for a resort out in this area. Still delaying farming. There just isn't enough green space. I'm going to end up using these islands to build on once you get choked up for land. And there is the city center. So obviously I can't build it like here. But oh boy, I might actually have to. I have 1 plateau, so I could try and chain the city onto that. I think this is actually decent. I think I can recoup that with 1 mansion here, 2 mansions here that touch them both, and then some houses in this area. I think I can recover it. There's a pleasant 20. It's like a... ooh. That's a pretty tasty 26. I'll take that. So let's go ahead and get our first 21-point fisher. I'm not expecting a 3rd city center for a while, so... the tower I haven't spoke about yet. It gets points for mansions, parks, walls, and houses. Like 4 of the buildings that you'll be getting until the end of the game, and it has a pretty big radius, so it kind of just always pays to wait. Like, you'll always find some tiny spot to put it in. Look at how small the base is. And then when you cram it in there, it'll detect everything you've placed. It is generally best to build these large radius buildings, the ones that count common buildings, like mansions, houses, parks, walls, as late as possible. They're only going to get better. I don't want to take this space. This is kind of prime house estate, and I'll need as many house placements as I can get. Now, I like to consider huts kind of a stopgap building. I build them whenever I can't get to the next value without placing something I want to hold. In this case, I can use a fisher or something instead, but that's how I think of them. There's another 21 points. It's tempting. I actually think... that warehouse is looking more tempting the more I think about it. These early islands are just so choked for space. As always, whenever you have kind of a wiggle like this, like I could place it here or here, that to the right of the building, this area right here, is not enough space to put anything, so I'll put it as far in as I can, because there might be enough space here on the left by me creating a larger gap. Yeah, like right there I can kind of glitch a building in. I think I want it down here, because then I might be able to get another hops field fit in here to touch like those 5. Alright, still delaying farming. Glad to have a circus finally. There really is not a super nice place to put... Oh! Yep. Somehow. And the circus is cool because it gets 4 from a house, and houses get 3 from it. So it's like a very small loss to place them in the circus first, then houses order. I will go ahead and place in some houses, but that circus spot I need to make sure that I leave, because it's not really going to get any better than that. I'll wait. If I get more plateaus, I might start a new city with a new city center. I can plateau on that. Probably not out here. It'll probably be down here, because out here is where the resort oasis is going to have to go. I think that's what I'll do. And I'll put it as far in as I can so that hopefully my tavern will be able to grab both of them. $33 points. Yeah, that's fine. Now you see we got some like 19-point park, 16-point park. These will, of course, also benefit the resort oasis we'll eventually build out here. Resort oases don't mind these 2 industry buildings, that being the fisher and the brewery. That's a 21 in a small area. Go to a much smaller spot for fewer points, but I think that's a fine first hut. Okay, the market. I don't intend to place the market for a long time. I'll get a wall plateau and place it on top of all of this, but the market is good to have. Delay your markets as long as you can. They also, like the tower, have a big detection radius. It's always worth waiting. Tempted to just go ahead and place it. I think I might need the points this round. Alright. Resort oasis. Excellent. So you see, when I build this out here, it'll have a pretty good payout. 5 for each of those parks. Can't complain. New city center. This one I don't want to take a point minus on. I'm kind of skating right now. I don't have like a huge bank of high value buildings that I can actually build. So I'm going to place this to get full value. And I'm also placing it, hopefully, so I can build some new mansions around it. Yeah, right there is fine. Okay, and then we can start getting mansion points. Yeah, these are now worth 27. Makes you wish you'd saved these, right? That's kind of the whole experience of the game is, man, that would have been better if I'd waited, just over and over and over. And now I'm going to look at the area that it covers. The tavern, of course, gets a huge boost from breweries, but sometimes, especially when you're building multiple, you can get enough points just from your houses to make the breweries irrelevant. So now that I'm taking the temple, you take the market the resort oasis, the temple, and then you get access to the plateaus, both water and wall. And you always take water before wall, at least in my experience. So I'm basically slowly building towards the point where I can start cashing in some of these high values. Walls, generally speaking, you want to place as late as possible. They penalize a lot of buildings. The only thing that really cares about them is the tower, and the temple cares, but the temple gets fewer points from them than they get from it. So you should build the temple first. You see already that my green space shortage is starting to penalize me. I certainly could build some like low value parks in this region, but I'm going to end up with more parks than I have green space on my island. That is for sure. Sweet. Alright, now that we're getting plateaus. Water plateaus are one of the most randomized buildings, and they can really screw you. If you get the T-shape one over and over and over and never get the green one, then they're worth very little. So this is decent. It's the mid-value one, right? Flat, but with no green. So sadly, that is not going to unlock any of this stuff for me. It might end up being a market placement, but I don't want to place anything else on it. So if I want to go ahead and cash in a resort oasis right here, I'll do it on a normal plateau. Yeah, 125. And I will place it as far forward as I can, because that leaves space on the back of this structure for more parks. The cool thing about Resort Oasis, too, is that they don't actually hate each other. So if I build this out here, I can cash in most of those same points again. I mean, obviously, there's not another ideal spot, but... Wall Plateau. This is going to be kind of a make or break point for me, is figuring out if I can build above the rest of my city. 33 might be as good as my temples get this round, which is disappointing. And even a 53, if I hadn't built the warehouse there, would not be like a huge temple, but... So I could just place it like here with the intention of continuing these mansions. That actually seems decent. And the next one is not. Not green, not good. Alright, finally, farming. So you see we have 2 fields. Now can you imagine if we had like that many fields that had to occupy green space? You see the reason that I would delay farming on this island. Oh, +3. Okay, we have some good new mansions at least. We can definitely put mansions up here that have pretty good point values. Not a narrow park, so I can't place it back here, but maybe soon. Oh, +7. That's tempting. Nice. And then you see we can get a pretty easy 11 there. Does this narrow park fit? Yeah! That's a pretty good payoff. So, +3 looks like maybe my greatest path. There's like no trees left. Sawmill statue, yeah. I will accept this +3. I don't think that I'm getting much out of that no matter where I place it, no matter how long I wait. Alright, so now we can start thinking in terms of hitting tiers. So we need to get 41 points, and out of the buildings we have here, I don't think we can get that without placing the wall plateau, maybe a couple walls. Like, just these 3 are not getting us there. So we're going to have to place meaningful buildings. 108 now. Yeah, I'd rather wait. Rather wait. Certain buildings you just want to wait as long as you can. And since I only need 19 points now, I believe I can get there with parks. 1 wall. Oh, look, more buildings. That's an instant payoff for waiting on the market. Now I am going to place the market. At this point, you kind of have to start taking what you can get. Oh, 14. Okay. Yeah, I can dip into both of these from below. That's going to be a pretty profitable tiny city right there. So to get to the next tier, I'm definitely going to need to dip into doing some stupid stuff, like probably walls. I don't think I want to do the mill yet. Ideally, I would love a green space so I can actually make use of these fields. It's not worth a ton. Like, that's not a lot of points, no matter how perfectly you place them. But it's something. So now I really might have to use... You know what? It's time to take one for the team. That's 2 points. This is 3, I think. Yeah, that'll get me there. Yeah, let's get 60-something out of this. 66-point tower. Very nice. And they're only minus 20 to each other, so there's a 46-point tower right next to it. Oh, the double mill. Savage. It's like really useless. Yeah, so now plateaus, water plateaus. I am in desperate need. So I'm going to go ahead and take a 19. And my other mill will likely end up being a similar point value, but in a different spot. 52? Jeez. Sounds good to me. I think I'll take the 14. I think I just need the raw points. Alright. Let's start dipping into these green spaces. Park will fit. Sure. Well concentrated. I don't want to build here yet. I'm keeping the market dream alive. And I need 20 points. Okay, I'll take a 10. Painful. Alright, no market, but I can get a 48-point fountain up there, or a 25-point down here. Yeah, not tempting. Alright, so this space that I was trying to reserve, I will have to use if I want any chance of getting through this round. So let's take our high point payoff, in this case of 48. And we'll also place our highest value walls in here. So like there's a 39 and a also very high 23. Probably should have placed this first, so it would have been 6 points higher. That's just poor play. That's just a big mistake. The good news is I only need 7 points now. The bad news is I may actually not be able to get 7 points. Oh, okay. Because I got back-to-back straight parks, I can coast through another round. Interesting. A tavern. Wow. Surprised that fits. Then we'll have to take a 7 here. I can't imagine it ever getting better. Okay, so we never got the extension that we needed. We only had a few ways to build off of our starting island, but we did a pretty good job making use of the space we have. Good job with building sequencing, except for a few slip-ups at the end. Perhaps if I really dug around here, I could find a few more spots to place parks. Scrape together 20 more points perhaps, but I don't actually think so. I think that this is a good point to end on, so hopefully this has shown that even on the starting island, there's a rich depth to your decision making in Islanders, both with what buildings you choose, the sequence you unlock them, how you choose to place them, and also when to kind of save up for a big payoff and when it's better to just go ahead and take what you can get to unlock the next tier. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. There's not a lot of content being created for Islanders. I mean, it's a small indie game, but I love it. I just adore the game to death. And if you'd like to see more, please just let me know in the comment section below.